All right, we're getting bold today. Derrick doesn't mess around with this pour. He's poured me plenty of stuff that would be categorized as cinnamon, caramel, vanilla, fig, apple, and all these pleasantries that you typically pick up in whiskey. Today he's going to pour me something from an island off Scotland called Islay. Islay is a small island, about 3,500 people or so on the island, and about 8 or 9 distilleries. So small island, lots of big distilleries. They also are known for some of the most hardest to pronounce whiskey distilleries we have on this planet as well. Islay whiskey is known for that peat, that smokiness, that brininess. It's one of those whiskeys that somebody pours next to you and that whiskey just fills up the whole room. And if you've never had it or smelt it, you instantly want to go, what is in that glass? And not necessarily in a good way. Most people find that first whiff of a peated whiskey offensive. They find it too bold. They find it too harsh. So unapproachable. So far, we've had a lot of approachable whiskeys. And not that these aren't approachable, but they're less approached. Because a lot of times the way your nose is connected to your taste buds, some of these can be a little off-putting to some out the gate. Personally, I didn't like peated at first. Years ago, I had the same preconceived notions. Oh, how do you drink that? How do you drink that? Now it's arguably my favorite type of whiskey there is, and I like all kinds of whiskey. I do believe that once you get beyond the peat, that peated whiskey offers you more characteristics than any other whiskey. More flavor profile, more off the nose, more off the taste bud, more off the finish. And to me, it's some of the most divine whiskey there is. They're some of the hardest to pronounce on the island of Islay. Some of you may or may not have heard of Laphroaig, Lagavulin, Kilchoman, Bunnahabhain. This is the Bruichladdich. This is their Octomore edition. And of course, Derrick, not this particular bottle, but Derrick's going to pour me some Ardbeg. I mean, how does anything coming from a brand called Ardbeg sound tasty? I'm actually going to read you. So normally you pick up a bottle and it'll tell you, sweet molasses, drizzled over apple. I mean, they get all comfortable with the pleasantries of what you're expected to get on the nose and the palate. This bottle here, I'm going to read this verbatim. Explore notes of pungent peat smoke, aniseed, and toasted lavender, while bitter almonds and dark chocolate fuse with curious hints of palicine. That's Play-Doh? And burnt rubber descend into a finish that collapses in on itself before returning to earthly notes of roasted coffee and smoky heather. And I'll tell you something. One of my favorite bottles from Ardbeg. This is one of their special releases. They call this Committee Edition. So they don't make this anymore. It's come, it's gone. And this absolutely tastes pretty much like everything they said. I also like to use this bottle as an example of people often pick up a glass of whiskey and go, ooh, look at that rich color, that's dark. And we kind of want to believe that the darker the whiskey, the more premium or the better the whiskey. And as soon as you get into peated whiskeys, you instantly learn that's not true. This is some of the lightest whiskey you can have. It's a little darker than dirty water. And this has more flavor profile and more characteristics than any other darker whiskey that I've ever had. So Derrick's going to pour me a little bit of Ardbeg tonight. Blind, of course. We'll see if I like it. We'll see if I get it. Enjoy. We'll see you soon. Yeah, I do. I get a little rubber band. In a good way. In a good way. I know it sounds crazy, but I love it.
Tuesday, and welcome back to the Whiskey Cave. Tonight we're going back to Scotland to see if Tom can get this one blind. So we're going with an Ardbeg. It's called the Wee Beastie. It's only 5 years old, 94 proof, relatively inexpensive. You can get it for $45 to $50 as an Islay Scotch. It's going to be peaty. He's going to get that right off the nose. Ardbegs tend to be lighter in notes. I think they do a really good job. If you haven't had an Ardbeg, I really suggest you go out and try one. They make a lot of kind of specialty things, really unique flavors. Every time it's a real experience. So my guess is he's gonna notice the saltiness from being on the island. Obviously the peat should be notes of like maybe apple and pear. It's only 5 years old, so you might notice that's a bit young. And I think it's a pretty good chance he gets this. We'll see how he does. I can smell the peat already. Happy Tuesday?
Happy Tuesday. What do you got in store for me today?
I think you'll enjoy this.
Yeah?
Yeah. Obviously getting the exact thing is hard, but my guess is you're going to get a lot of the characteristics. You can get real close to it.
Okay. Something you like? I'm checking for hints already.
Yes. Yes. And you've had a lot of this, a lot from this distillery, and you've always enjoyed it, I think. So,
Okay.
I'm assuming you've had this.
Okay.
We'll see.
We'll find out.
Yeah. I expect it to be good.
Ooh.
Yeah, right out. You just opening the cover, you can get.
Yeah.
I gotta just open in the bottle.
Definitely, yeah. You're getting that briny peat.
Not
Not overly bearing, but I'm not so sure I know what overly bearing is.
Yeah, like I say, it's hard. Once you get into the peat land, you don't necessarily notice as much, but just off the nose, initial smell, this is one of the peatier ones right out of the bottle that I've had lately.
Really? It's a springy peat. So, we've talked
That makes sense.
sometimes a few
Yep.
varieties of the peat. This is, I suppose, a little bit more riverbank, sunshine rain.
Mm-hmm. Now that my nose has had a couple sniffs of it, it's not as distinctive. And I'm losing the peat and picking up the other
Characteristics,
the characteristics.
More of the charred pear variety.
Yes. And I think, but that's also, one thing we've talked about a lot around peats is that these receptors that when you first experience it, they're going to get filled up.
Yes.
And then you notice the things that are underneath the peat once those receptors are filled. So that first taste or that first sip might have one characteristic, but then the second and third will show more delicate elements.
I've often described that same thing with peated whiskey. It's like you got to fill the potholes of your pores, right? And once you put a little base in those potholes of your tongue, now it allows for all the other characteristics of the peated whiskey to come to life.
Yes.
But you got to get over that first initial.
And it wouldn't be intuitive for most people, but I think, for me at least, that a lot of the peated whiskeys are really delicate.
Yes.
Really subtle flavors, light flavors. You wouldn't think you'd get that through the peating process, but it does. That's what comes out.
Yeah, no. The common whiskey drinker that's not into peated just assume it's a punch in the face.
Yes. Because that first nose, all they get is that first nose, and they don't get the rest of it.
Yeah. Electrical fire, burnt transformers.
Yeah.
Overly charred fire pit. Well, this has got a great nose.
It does.
It's very pleasant. And like I say, springy, which I my favorite on the peat senses.
Yes. Yeah, I prefer the subtle ones.
Down the hatch. I noticed this. You found the Heaven Hill.
It was totally by accident.
Yeah.
Amongst all of them, it doesn't really stand out.
It doesn't. It really doesn't. It doesn't even stand out to me when I'm putting them away. It just looks like another one. It's good. I mean, it's definitely telling me this is an Islay.
Yeah, it's very pleasant.
I guess my initial thought was an Ardbeg, but I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean it is an Ardbeg.
Mm-hmm. So you're getting right to the end of it, but let's kind of go through the profile and see what Scotland.
Yes,
Islay.
Scotland.
Given it the Peated,
yeah.
that's kind of an obvious connection there.
So
Proofy, not proofy?
I think it's a little proofy.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're probably somewhere in the 100 range. Plus or minus a little bit. I am getting a little bit on the back, a little bit of that zing spice, if you will.
Yep.
That's telling me there's a little bit of proof there.
I find it really light and kind of even refreshing.
It is. Yeah. It is. I totally agree. It's light and refreshing with quite a bit of character at the same time.
Yep. Good flavor.
It's probably not age stated, but I'm just guessing that off of more of experience. A lot of the peateds are not age stated because they don't have to be.
True.
You can
get a lot of flavor out of a process that's much shorter compared to some of the other.
So, in the world of Scotch, if it's only aged for 5 years, then that's it looks bad because we're so used to seeing 10, 12, 15, 14. Right?
Yep.
So they just don't put it on at all. I do know when they advertise the Octomores up here, they're generally a 5 year, and they'll generally put that on there. But it just goes to show that you can have a phenomenal peated whiskey.
Yeah, you can make a fine product.
Yeah,
with less time.
With less time. But I'll say there's probably not an age on this bottle, but that's just a broad guess there. If I were to rate this bottle, it's giving me all the characteristics I like, but at the same time, it's not overshooting anything or giving me anything wow characteristics.
Sure.
It is rather, I don't want to say this in an insulting term, but it's rather run-of-the-mill light springy peat.
That makes sense.
We've had this relative flavor profile from a few different distilleries. And that's not knocking on it because it's one of my go-to peated kind of profiles. Yep. That being said, I'd probably give it an 8.6 on the nose. It's pretty good. I'm going to dial it back a little bit from there, probably 8.4, 8.3. I'm going to dip it down on the finish a little bit, a little thin.
I agree with you.
Just a little thin.
Yep.
So it's a nose I like. Palate follows through. It all generally follows through. I guess I just wish the finish.
A little bit more
I'm
to
splitting
it.
hairs.
Sure.
It had just a little bit more to it, a little bit more volume, a little bit more burst to it.
I would probably even scale my personal ratings would scale that down a few points.
Okay.
Maybe plus right around 8. Nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
Perfectly good rating. It's good. Nothing distinctive.
So I think if you're comparing it to other peats, I would agree with you completely.
Yeah.
Nothing distinctive. If I'm comparing it to either other scotches or other whiskeys in general, then it's rather very distinctive. And if you compared this to just a space side single malt, well, then generally this nose is probably going to have more pop. The finish and the palate's going to have more pop because of the peat.
Yeah, it has the pop, but it doesn't have the richness.
No.
I feel like the flavors dissipate quickly.
Yes.
They're good, but short-lived.
All right, so this is a fairly low-rated peat for you. That's what I get out of this.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. Not bad, but just
not. Yeah, you've had much better peats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's definitely true.
Yeah. I wouldn't know where to guess with the bottle. Again, my first thought was an Ardbeg.
Yep.
And it doesn't necessarily mean it is, but sometimes Ardbeg has this. I'm going to make this sound delightful and divine for everybody. Has this like a rubbery kind of tendency. Not texture.
Yeah.
Like that first initial note, it dissipates, it goes away, then I can't find it again.
Yep.
But just that, that first impression kind of thing, it a little rubbery. And it really shines on some of their committee release bottles. So it's their special release bottles, typically an annual release or something like that. Some of them really do taste like rubber. And I know that sounds bad, but it's really, really good. I know it's an oxymoron flavor note, but it's distinct and what have you. And since I've had some of those bottles, I tend to pick some of that up elsewhere.
Okay.
So, but this really could be
So
anything off the island.
price point?
Well, a peated whiskey. So, but it does seem to be on the more of the entry level side of peated whiskey. So I'm going to probably say $60.
Okay.
So plus or minus a little there. But I could drink this on a regular.
Yes.
Good. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Any other comments before I pull out the bottle?
Pull out the bottle. You know, I think there's more animals on the island of Islay than there are people.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, like sheep even.
I'm not certain I've had this. I assume I have. It would have been a long time ago. I brought this bottle.
Oh, okay. So you brought this bottle.
Yeah.
I don't ponder that thought a second. And you're not sure if you've had this one?
I've had a lot from this distillery. I'm not sure I've had this bottle.
And obviously was unsure and or knew that I didn't have it.
I was unsure.
Yeah.
I didn't think you did. I thought I looked, and I didn't remember seeing it.
That kind of leads me to be like an Ardbeg 10 or a what's the real entry level Ardbeg? Oh, I'm drawing a blank on this one. It's like a 6-year Ardbeg.
So the
Wee Beastie.
The Wee Beastie.
Yes.
This is the Wee Beastie. 5-year.
Yep.
94. It was like $45.
That's a 5-year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
But going with the theme of what we've been doing for the blinds and wanting kind of entry level scotches that people could try, I thought this would be a good selection.
I think those are great.
To add to the mix.
Yeah, because this is one of the more approachable, accessible.
Yes, and if you like this one, well then try some of the other ones. Because some of the other ones are phenomenal.
Yeah.
And some of the annual release ones are so distinctive.
Yes.
You know, each one is its own little ride or experience.
They really are, especially those committee releases. And they can be all over the board from a flavor profile, from like I say, rubber to campfire to just all kinds of different notes and characteristics. And yes, I have had this before. I couldn't tell you when.
Yeah, I mean, early on we probably did.
Yeah.
Not something that's necessarily stocked anymore, but
no. Yeah, and I wouldn't. Not that I'm knocking this, but I personally wouldn't buy this again.
Mm-hmm.
There's plenty of other Ardbegs out there that I would choose over this particular bottle.
Sure.
But if I was going to a buddy's house and I was in the mood for peated whiskey, this would be more than fine. Absolutely. I rated it high.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Yeah.
I think it's a good entry level peated whiskey.
Yeah.
And from an excellent distillery.
Oh yeah, love Ardbeg.
So I'll give you the win on that one.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
Cheers.
Cheers, my friend, and we'll do this again next week.
Very good.
A couple more to go in this series, I think.
I've lost track.
Yes. And they do run together a little bit.
Yeah.
That's all right. Just means we're having fun. So we'll see you next time. Cheers.